to come and present to Larote. I had the wonderful opportunity to visit Israel about a month ago and personally see all of the great research that's going on there. I have to give credit to all of the researchers in Israel, Hadassah, Tel Shamar, Rabin, all of the groups, Technion, because there is a tremendous amount going on in Israel. And I'm happy to say the foundation is a funder of research in Israel at Hadassah, at Technion, at other institutions, and I hope this continues and expands. So what I'm going to do in a very short period is to present what is at the cutting edge of research in ophthalmology and retinal degenerations. So Elaine just read what the FFB mission is. The Foundation Fighting Blindness was established in a living room in Reisterstown, Maryland 40 years ago by affected family members and affected people themselves, because at that time in 1971 essentially nothing was known about the retina or retinal degenerative diseases. So that has continued. The foundation has raised over $450 million for research and funds all around the world to fund the best research going forward. In 2004, the foundation saw that it was time to leverage the research that we had been funding for all those years, along with the National Eye Institute and others, and established the National Neurovision Research Institute, which is the clinical arm of the Foundation Fighting Blindness. And the mission of the NNRI is to take those bench science and actually move it into clinical trials so that treatments and preventions and hopefully cures can in fact be realized going forward. So what is a rare disease? Because as you heard, the Foundation Fighting Blindness started life as the Retinitis Pigmentosa Foundation. And a rare disease in the United States is any disease that has less than 200,000 affected individuals. And there are more than 25 million people in the United States that are affected by more actually than 6,800 different rare diseases. So what are the diseases of interest for the Foundation Fighting Blindness? And actually, as you'll see at the bottom, there are 17 others. But we started, as I said, as the RP Foundation, Stargardt disease, which is juvenile macular degeneration, Usher syndrome, choroideremia, X-linked retinoschisis, Best disease, and 17 other retinal degenerations. And we do support dry AMD research because it is believed that the mechanism that gives rise to macular degeneration is akin to or closely associated with the mechanism that gives rise to juvenile macular degeneration, Stargardt disease. So leveraging the large population, unfortunately, and I'm one of them, who has macular degeneration, we're hoping to learn more about Stargardt disease, which is the juvenile form. So really, what goes wrong in retinal degenerations and how do you treat them? No matter which way you slice the cake, the bottom line is in all of these inherited rare retinal degenerations, it's the losing the cells in the back of the eye that perceive light. It's like the film in a camera, for those of us who've moved to digital, that LCD screen goes bad. And you have to figure out a way to bring it back, and that's what we're talking about. And we're looking at a number of different ways to do that, and that's what I'll be talking to you about. So just to give you an idea of the retinal degeneration landscape, in the United States, retinitis pigmentosa is about 150,000 to 2.5 to 3 million worldwide, Stargardt, Usher, and then of course there's dry macular degeneration, which is in the millions. So what is the process whereby a molecule that, or whatever treatment it is, could potentially become an FDA approved or EMA approved or approved in another country treatment? And so what you see on the left is exploratory research and discovery research. That's the basic science. That's where FFB started out many years ago, and we still support, because no matter what, you've got to understand what's going on in the cells in the eye in order to figure out where the targets of opportunity are. And then there's preclinical, clinical, meaning you actually go into humans, and then take it all the way through to FDA approval. And what you see at the bottom is what's called the valley of death, the translational gap. And what's meant by that? Well, basically what it is that in order to take something from the bench into the clinic takes a lot of money, and the venture capitalists and investment bankers are not putting that money forward. And the NIH, even though I spent 14 years there managing clinical trials and research, tends to be a bit averse to funding that type of research. And this is where the Foundation Fighting Blindness and our clinical arm, the National Neurovision Research Institute, along with other foundations like us, step in. So what you see at the top is how funding normally happens to bring a treatment to clinic. It's traditional venture capital, a for-profit alliance with a biotech that has enough money, like Genentech, or a large pharma like Pfizer, Novartis, or all the ones that you know. But really the one that makes the difference now is the nonprofit alliance. And that's where we and other nonprofits are bridging the gap in order to make sure that things get far enough that it could attract financing from venture capital or large pharma. So the big issue is, in order to do a clinical trial, is tens of millions of dollars. Our job is to de-risk it, take it through that valley of death, show a proof of concept in humans that it works, and then by de-risking it, we believe, and we're getting there, that big pharma or venture capitalists will see it go forward. And that's what happened recently for cystic fibrosis, that worked with a company called Vertex, a biotech out of Boston, where they put in tens of millions of dollars, and they now have the first, what will be approved treatment for cystic fibrosis. Not just antibiotics to prevent infection, but an actual treatment. And CF is a rare disease. So it shows that the model can work, and that companies are coming to us all the time. As Dr. Perez said, Arvo, and as Elaine said, next week, 15,000 or more crazy ophthalmologists and researchers in Florida meeting and talking science. But the bottom line is there are a lot of good ideas there. And that's what we're there for, that's what everybody is there for, is to understand what's going on. So our model is to partner with companies and investigators in order to move the most promising forward, and we're very flexible in how we work. Yes, we do our due diligence. Yes, we make sure that the company is going to be there if we're working with a for-profit. But the bottom line is our job is to make sure nothing gets lost, nothing gets left under a rock, because the financing isn't there if at all possible. So what are some of the current, and this part is going to be, I'm just going to give you a smattering of different projects that are ongoing and talk to you about what's going to the clinic and what's in the clinic. So I assume some of you have heard about the successful gene therapy trials for a childhood form of retinitis pigmentosa called Leber's congenital amaurosis. It's a gene therapy trial, i.e. replacing the defective gene with a good one. And in fact, it has restored vision in over 50 individuals who were essentially blind from birth or very shortly thereafter. We are dealing with a lot of different companies. I'm not going to read them all. We have a lot of gene therapies, and as you will see, we're working with AGTC in Florida on a gene therapy for X-linked juvenile retinoschisis, X-linked retinitis pigmentosa, and just so that we know, Best disease at the bottom. These are some others that are going forward, more gene therapies for LCA. We are currently running a trial for autosomal dominant RP, and that's using an FDA-approved drug. There are 2 other gene therapies ongoing, and stem cells. So one of the big areas is stem cell work or regenerative medicine. So what's going on here? You've heard about induced pluripotent stem cells, where a skin sample or now even blood from an individual can be turned into stem cells and then returned into retinal cells, and including being able to correct the genetic defect that's originally in those cells with the idea of transplanting them back into the individual who gave that skin sample. There's very interesting work coming out of Japan where embryonic stem cells in fact can actually grow a retina. Just heard that talk at the National Eye Institute, NIH, from Dr. Sasai. Very interesting work and very promising work, as well as the work that just came out of Moorfields from Robin Alley's group, specifically on also doing transplant in photoreceptors. These are just examples of ongoing clinical trials already in retinal degenerations in the United States. And what this is just a laundry list of all the different clinical trials, gene therapy, drug, as well as stem cell, that are going on throughout the world that are going to be reported at ARVO. So with that, I will conclude. It was a, what I call 100,000-foot level talk, but I think it gives you an idea of the exciting times that are ongoing in retinal degeneration research, led not only by the United States researchers, by Israeli researchers and others around the world. Thank you.
Wow.